Hey guys, today we're going to be taking a look at levels and curves in Photopea and using them to make a kind of a more stark and interesting image. Um, yeah, let's get into it. So here we have a pretty generic sort of a scene here. We've got a dock. This was taken by me a number of years ago. Just kind of a cool cloud formation over a nice kind of lake area thing. And what we're going to do is we're going to play with the levels and adjustments of this image to make it more dramatic. So what I want to do, we are going to go down and we're going to click on this little half circle here again. This is where you add adjustment layers. And we're going to click on, there's two that we're going to look at. We're going to look at levels and we're going to look at curves and how these two kind of are similar and how you can use them together. So I'm going to click on levels first. Let's go through that. So this little pop-up menu here really shows us, this is graph, right? And what this means is that you have all your dark stuff, all the dark information is way on the far left here, and all the light, pure white stuff is way over here. Okay, and this is all the stuff in between, right? So all the gray, all the stuff in between black and white. So what we can do with this is we can, with these little sliders, we can make things darker or lighter within the image. So essentially when I click on this black box and move it to the right, it's essentially saying all the stuff over here, like all this stuff right here, to the left of my box is now going to be pure black, right? So I can like make it all, if I drag it all, kept dragging, it would go pure black because all the information on that side of the box is all going to be pure black. Same thing with over here, right? If I drag this one here, it's going to turn it pure white. We also have this gray box, and this is your midtone. So that means if I click on it and drag this to the right, it's going to get darker. All the midtones, all the grays are going to start getting darker. And over this way, that means there's more light in my midtones, right? This big section right here, more dark over here. Hopefully that makes sense. I can always reset things just by pushing 1. I'll bring it back to the middle. We have 0, 1, and then 255. The bottom gradient here, what that does is it darkens the entire image, right? So essentially when I drag this black one here, it's basically cutting out all of my darks, right? See how it's getting darker? It's only using the information in here. So my darkest point is going to be that gray right there. Same thing with my white. So if I drag these both into the middle, like that, eventually you're going to get just a gray mess. Now, it's kind of fun because you can also invert everything, right? So if all your blacks are light and all your lights are black, well, this is what happens. So you can just push Control Z to reset that. So that's what the levels do. Okay, so if we were to play around with this, right now we're on RGB mode. So that means we're editing the entire image. So we can go like this and again make things a little darker, a little lighter, kind of making it pop out a little bit more. Maybe I'll make everything a little bit more moody, dark, just a bit. You never want to like go too crazy on this stuff. So that's looking kind of cool. Now we can also edit particular colors. So I can go in and I can click on my reds here. And you can see that what's going to happen is that it's going to look at what's the opposite as well of red. Just like it's black and white, we're doing red, and the opposite of red is blue. It's actually kind of a cyan, I think. And so if I drag this, my red is over here. If I drag this over here, it's going to make everything a little bit more red. Right? See that? It kind of goes through purple first. Same thing over here. Drag this over here. Everything is going to get more and more and more intensely blue. Same thing here, right? You can kind of get this kind of cool effect where it's kind of this kind of like an old-timey faded out image there if you kind of drag that out, kind of like a Polaroid sort of effect, which is kind of neat. You drag those over, you kind of get this dual tone thing, so you can see these blues and these reds, also kind of cool. But let's play around with things. I want to get, I think I want to get my, I won't play too much with this, but you can kind of like see how it's editing certain things. You can go through, and if you want to change your blues, right, make everything kind of green. The opposite of green is blue. The opposite of red is cyan. It's kind of a light blue. So anyway, you sort of neat stuff here. Pretty powerful tool. It's drastically changing and editing my photo. All right. The other thing that I want to show you is the curves tool. So I'm just going to hide this for now, and I'm going to go into my adjustment layers here, and I'm going to click on curves. Another new one is going to pop up. So what I've done is I hid that, so it's just the plain unaltered background for now. Now, when I click on curves, I also have this chart again. This is called a histogram. Both of these on the levels and the curves, this is called histogram. And it's very, very similar to what we saw on here, right? It's the same sort of a mountain range that we have. Change this back to RGB. All right, so when I click on my curves again, yeah, again, same thing. But the difference here is that we have this line going across from the top or bottom left to the top right. And down here is our darks, and up there is our lights. And the cool thing about this is that we can actually like start moving this line around, right? So I just clicked and dragged, and I'm starting to move stuff around. You can click on these nodes here. Maybe I'll just get rid of this one, just drag it off the screen. And if I start dragging this up, essentially what this is doing, it's like on our levels where that little gray gradient slider was, it's doing the same thing there. I'm making everything lighter because it's going closer to the top. Same thing, I can drag this down and make everything darker. Now, what's kind of neat about the curves is that you can make a curve. So if I want all my darks to be a little bit more intense, I can drag it down, right? Because right here, this big mountain peak right here, this is all kind of the gray areas here. There's not much that's pure black. It's not much pure light white, but there's a big area that's obviously this gray, and that's this whole sky. So I'm just going to drag that down a little bit until it looks kind of moody and cool. Maybe I'll try and move this over. Oh, that's looking pretty neat. And maybe this sky needs to be a little bit lighter in the background, right? So then I can make this, everything else kind of pop out and really neat. Generally, when you're playing with the curves, you don't want to add too many things. You can obviously make things go really wonky, right? Just keep adding more and more of these nodes to kind of get this totally messed up, crazy image. Now, there are times that you might want to do this. Maybe you're making some psychedelic piece here, but generally you want to keep it subtle. So I'm just going to Control Z to reset and try to keep it looking good. You also have this sketch instead of the spline, and it's just kind of the same thing. You can kind of just drag stuff around, and it gets really carried away really quickly. As you can see, you can do all sorts of weird stuff. It's pretty useless, to be honest, but I prefer using the spline. Now, just like the levels, we can also edit particular parts of the image, particular colors at a time. So if I go to reds, here's the big chunk of red. The opposite of red is cyan, which is a light blue. So if I wanted to crank up the reds in that area, I could, right? Down here, it's basically like flipping stuff around. So you can use that to kind of edit particular areas of your work. Blue, see what we see here. Opposite of blue is green again, make it more blue. So there you have it. That is curves and levels. And these are like really, really useful to to photographers who are wanting to edit stuff. You can make some really interesting works, really interesting pieces with these tools. Um, and don't be afraid to experiment. And honestly, whichever one you do, it's best just to pick one because they both kind of do the same thing. Personally, I like curves, but you might like levels, and that's fine. Pick the one that is going to be best for what you're doing. Okay, guys, have a good one, and we'll see you next time.